So, I really am finding this really annoying situation, honestly. I feel like people, you know, like to talk very ignorantly about these kind of situations and without even realizing that there's a difference with some people on skin tone. For one, like people never pay attention to the fact that Serena Williams, brown skinned, she's always been brown skinned, and people always get confused and think that she's like dark skinned naturally. I can totally relate with the situation personally because it's like a lot of the time people like to assume that you are the complexion that you are, you know, the complexion that, you get when you're tanned. And it's like, that's not quite the case, everybody tans, everybody gets different complexions, but, people who are of different complexions never understand this. The problem in the matter is just that sorry. The problem of the matter is that most of the time, people are not really understanding of other people, but they want everyone else to be understanding of them. I really do get tired of dark skinned people who are not familiar with brown skin talking about it as if they know anything about being brown skinned. I feel like, personally, as a brown skinned woman, I don't go talking about dark skin or how it looks in the sun or how it looks in a certain lighting or, how tan they can get versus, they're dark skinned. But when they get tanned, people always say don't make fun of dark skinned people when they tan. But it's okay to make fun of brown skinned women when they tan. And it's okay to, make fun of them when they get very light skinned and when they're in the sun and they look lighter than what you're used to them being. You can see that Serena Williams, it's nothing new, her complexion is nothing new because she's had this complexion since at least I've seen her this way since at least like 2004 on and off, you know. And she's worn like foundation. Her natural color and foundation is like an NC45. And there's no dark skinned person who's an NC45. I'm sorry, it just doesn't happen that way. So for me, I just find it very annoying when people act like she has been bleaching, yet she has always been this light. Like, she's been this light on and off. Sometimes she tans, yes, and sometimes she comes back to this complexion. And like what I've said in the past, with brown skinned women, we're often accused of bleaching anytime we get to our natural complexions. And it's like, you know, everyone who is dark skinned is allowed to tan, but she's not allowed to, tan if she's this color or she's allowed to only be tan. Like, you can't have both complexions just because, your skin shifts. That's how you know the skin tone is not accepted. Not all shades are accepted. It's just like, like with dark skinned people and the whole colorism thing, it's not about accepting everyone's skin tone or trying to be acceptable based off of personality and not skin tone. It's about, an inferiority complex, really. And they're just upset about their skin tone. And therefore, they try and say, other people, they're going to put other people down to feel better about themselves rather than trying to have an equality situation. Oh, here. Travels of a Black Rose. People are dumb, lol. Swear everyone is bleaching, has plastic surgery. I'm light, tan in person, but put pictures. Yeah, but in pictures and bright light, I look super white. People swear I'm bleaching. No, it's just the lighting. Exactly. And honestly, to me, it was weird because it's like Serena Williams, when she's the picture they're talking about in the sun, she doesn't even look white, but people are claiming that she looks white. She has like a golden undertone, like a golden complexion. I've never seen a white person who had a golden complexion. And it's like they don't even use logic or, they don't really think, it seems like, because it's like, why would you say in that photo where you literally see that she's obviously exposed to the sun, her face is literally exposed to the sun, and you can see her legs have a different shade on different photos because one photo the sun is hidden it a certain way, the other photo it's not. Yet you're claiming she's bleaching. Is she bleaching in between these photos? Like, make it make sense? But I also find it like another problem is just like the tanning, because I personally experienced the same problem as Serena Williams, where, if you get really dark, people automatically think that you're bleaching when it's like, I've literally had it where I have videos 2 months apart, one in June and one in August, same year. And people would think I was like bleaching, even though it was the other way around. So, like in June, I was like this color basically. I was like caramel, right? And then in the other um, video, it was like August, and I was like a chocolate complexion. And people were acting like I bleached when literally, I mean, I'm getting darker. How is that bleaching? It just never really made sense to me. But, you know, that's what I mean. People always think that you can't naturally be caramel if you were dark skinned. And it's like, I think the problem and the thinking process issue that they're having is that they see someone who's dark skinned and they see them lighter brown skin now. It's triggering for them because they're like, they stay dark skinned. And so if they stay dark skinned and someone else gets lighter, it makes them like feel a certain way about that because they're like, how can you be so much lighter now because you were my color at one point? But you have to think, how dark do you get when you get tanned? You know, people's skin works very differently from another. So you can't be like, oh, just because we're the same color at one point in life, that, that other person has to be bleaching just because they want that your skin tone. I've seen plenty of light skinned people, like yellow complected people, who are like my color when they tan. I don't accuse them of bleaching when they return back to their complexion. Because in reality, it's like, I understand their skin tone doesn't work the same as mine. So it's not a shock that a light skinned person turned light brown in the summer and then went back to being very light skinned. I think, though, they're going to have to get used to this because Serena Williams is going to stay lighter as she retires from tennis and is no longer outside as much. I mean, a major component for why she looked darker brown very often was obvious because she's a tennis player. And if you look at many other tennis players, they are also very tanned as well. And that applies to white people. They look very tan many times. Um, I can't actually think of a tennis player who doesn't look tan. So it's like, to me, like, since people get so triggered about, her being lighter, I don't know what they're going to do. Because I'm like, a lot of bleachers, for example, can try to get lighter, but they won't stay that way if they get off of their pills and cream. They revert right back. And this is a good point of explaining the whole situation with tan lines, because it's like, um, bleachers, they don't have those kind of characteristics. Serena Williams has literally had like tan lines on her skin even when she's dark. So like you can see like on her like straps, her straps right where her tank is, her outfit and things like that, and her pits and her like kind of like her chest area. Um you can see that even when she's dark skinned, she still has a caramel hue in those areas. I've seen a photo of her in 1995. I think it was 1995. It was in the 90s, I know. And her skin had the same pattern, even though it was that long ago. So it's like, even though people always think that just because someone is really dark, that's going to be their whole complexion everywhere. That would be the case if they were naturally dark skinned. But people who are brown skinned, who tan, will have a complexion in their like inner arms, their chest, their pits, their legs, maybe if they wear long pants. She doesn't, so it's a different story. Um, in places where sun is not able to tan the skin, you'll see that they're actually another color. So, I mean, like a dark skinned person wouldn't have these traits. Her sister, who is naturally dark skinned, doesn't have those traits. Her sister is dark skinned everywhere because that's how dark skinned people are. Dark skinned people might have a shade that's a little lighter than what they, um, are when they tan, but they won't have caramel complected skin anywhere on their bodies. Yet people try to ignore this. That's why I'm like, she is not bleaching, in my opinion. She's just light brown. And you can see this throughout since like 2014, at least. I would say 2010, honestly. I have photos that have dated back to 2010. I personally, for me, since I am a fan of tennis, I've seen her complexion change in like 2005 and 2004, where it was like caramel sometimes and sometimes it was chocolate. I always saw her complexion as similar to mine. So I think maybe some people just haven't followed her long enough, because I've seen some people who are like, what? That she looks just normal, And she looks really nice, actually, in the photo that they're trying to drag her in. Also, I find it kind of weird that people act like it's so abnormal that she's tanned so dark and deeply, because it's like, I've seen in my life, I've seen so many brown skinned people do the same thing as her. Like, I had a roommate that was like that. I've had plenty of other roommates, actually. I have more than one roommate that was like that. Um, and I've had plenty of other people I've seen who can get to about the same complexion as like a Gabrielle Union, which is what Serena Williams does. Serena Williams is, about when she tans, she's about the same complexion as Gabrielle Union. But when she loses her tan, she's more so like, a lighter brown complexion, like I'm showing on these photos. So to me, oh, there's some comments. The one and only Ariana. Serena Williams is brown skinned though. Yeah, I consider her brown skinned too, but that's the difference. That's what I mean. Brown skin, I'm brown skinned by the way, is light brown skin. And when you're light brown skinned and you're outside a lot and you play tennis, your skin is going to get a darker brown complexion. Being Gabrielle Union's color is not very hard to accomplish. Honestly, I live in Vegas, and most of the people who are like light brown naturally are Gabrielle Union's color when they go outside. In fact, in one case, I saw one of my ex roommates from last year. She was like my color in February. By the time it's May, she's like Gabrielle Union's color. So that's what I mean. A lot of darker skinned people don't understand how our skin tone works. And then they assume that, we're bleaching just because our skin tone has gotten lighter. But it was already lighter naturally. We just got tanned from the sun. And these people that I'm talking about, they weren't even people who worked outside or anything. They just live in Vegas. So that's why I'm like, people often try to pretend that people are, brown skinned are basically bleaching. And it's often that brown skinned women are accused of bleaching, but nobody accuses dark skinned women of bleaching when they've made the bleaching industry a $1 billion industry. Yet we get blamed for it. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Let me say that again. Serena Williams is a white woman now. End of story. Oh, no. She doesn't even have white skin in the photos you guys are dragging her for. Because it's like, that's a major problem to me. It's like, just because in the sun she has a golden complexion, I've never seen a white person with a golden complexion. Even in the photo I'm showing with her having direct sunlight, as you can see, she still doesn't have white skin. And by the way, those photos aren't just recently taken. These are photos that have been taken and then she's gotten darker over time. So, how is she bleaching if she's gotten darker and then lighter? It's exactly like brown skinned women. It's not about being, you know, bleaching. Like, you're not bleaching, obviously, if you've gotten darker and then lighter like that. And also, it kind of shows, like, I tried to show a photo of her right here on the left bottom corner. You can see how she looks in direct sunlight. That's not white skin. I've never seen a white person with that skin tone. But you can see that in that photo, she is way lighter than the photo you guys are dragging her for. So I don't understand, how is she bleaching when she's been this color since the beginning? Travels of a Black Rose. Brown and tan people's skin color changes by lighting in pictures especially. Yes, exactly. That's what I was trying to show. Is, she was directly exposed to the sun, like her face was directly under the sun basically. It was like golden. And to me, I'm like, I've seen people darker than her. I remember I was on a bus of watching this. We were like on a bus, so we had sunlight, but not direct sunlight, but enough. The lady turns on the camera, and she turns like a very light brown. And she's like a dark skinned woman. This happens often, where people like are like in direct sunlight or indirect sunlight and they look a lot lighter than what they are. You apply that to someone who is a caramel complexion and they're going to have a very yellowish complexion. I know that myself. the photo that people are dragging her for, I look exactly the same when I do that too. And Serena Williams and I, we wear the same foundation color. So it's not really a shock that she would look like that under direct sunlight. But people, again, don't pay attention to, you know, the way some people's skin tone looks compared to others. Like, what I'm saying is, like, if you're very dark skinned, I understand you might not understand how light another person who's brown skinned can get. But what I don't understand is why they speak on it. Like I said, I don't speak on how a dark skinned person looks in like a dark area. I don't speak on that. I don't know how they look. I don't have that skin tone to really judge them on that or figure out like, is this natural or is this not natural? I don't know. I don't have that skin tone, you know? Travels of the Black Rose. I look different skin colors in my pictures. Me too. Yeah. Like I said, it just depends on a lot of different lighting. But yeah, honestly, it's like I myself have with tanning experienced it so many times where it's very easy to, tan to Gabrielle Union's color. So I don't understand why people act like it's such a shock that her tan complexion is so different from her natural complexion. For me, I mean, there are days, plenty of the time. Gabrielle Union is some people I've heard some people say that Gabrielle Union isn't even dark skinned one. And I mean, like, sometimes in my experience I've had it where some people actually were dark skinned and I think they thought I was darker than them, maybe even when I tan. So I mean, like, it's like I don't understand why people always assume that, tanning is only minimum. Because I've seen how tanning works on so many people who are brown skinned. The color shift is crazy season to season. And that's another thing. Serena Williams has been wearing an NC45 on and off since, early 2010s. And personally, that's my foundation. And it's generally NC44, NC45, and NC44.5 are the foundation ranges for like Rihanna, Nicki Minaj, Beyonce, Halle Berry, Stacey Dash, Ciara. And I mean, I find it really weird that people don't really pay attention to. Obviously, if you look at these people, when they're in the sunlight, when they're in different rooms and things of that nature, they do look a lot lighter than what they are naturally, even though they are light brown skinned women. And to me, it's like I feel like honestly, like, there's more to it than like I feel like if you, say I feel like most of the time people assume that if you, stay brown in the sun, you must, you know, be dark skinned, all year round. And I feel like honestly, like dark skinned people don't realize like, you know, the different lighting for brown skinned women. I mean, honestly, what really? really irks me is that Serena Williams, most people know that she is brown skinned. So I don't understand why people would think just because there's a difference in color that there's something wrong when we all know that brown skin changes during the seasons and it changes with different lighting. To me, it's like selective knowledge, kind of like they're selectively picking what they want to think and what they want to believe to paint a certain picture. I also feel like sometimes people love to pretend that she's dark skinned because of negativity said about her. And, you know, because they want to think, if people are so negative to her, it must be because she's dark skinned. And I get this the same kind of personally because I mean, like, when people want to talk crap about you, they automatically want to associate you with dark skinned people. And I find it so weird because and so sad because, that's because they mean to associate dark skin with everything negative. If you're dark skinned and you're associating everything negative with dark skin, what does that say about you? That says everything negative about you at the end of the day. And so for me, I guess that's why I find it really, disturbing that people like to have this kind of thought process, especially among dark skinned people. It's just another, manifestation in how they have self hate for themselves and how they implement it on, brown skinned women, which honestly, from my observance, it always seems like these same people who have colorist tendencies, like colorism, like have issues with, like they claim colorism or things of that nature, they are the same people basically that will, try to basically assume that, she is, called like often she's called a man and that you know that means she is dark skinned, and even though she's never been dark, when she's tan she is a dark, like definitely a dark brown, but you get what I'm saying, naturally she's not. And it's like, why would you assume just because someone was spoken of negatively that they must be dark skinned? True, like I said, if you look at her when she's next to Gabrielle Union, she's exactly the same color. But, I mean, it's not really a shock someone can tan and be that dark. I've seen much darker. And I feel like, it's kind of like the mindset of dark skinned people is a main reason why people like to think of her as dark skinned, darker than what she actually is, even tanned. And, like to try and claim that she's bleaching if they actually see her at her natural complexion, which anyone can see throughout the last 10 years. As I've posted photos, these are not recent photos of her. These are photos that are from her past, and they show that she's not a dark brown, not even a medium brown. She's a light brown complected woman, A major part of, why they also like to say that she's darker skinned and that she's a bleacher is more so because of her facial features. A lot of the time, women who are light skinned and light brown skinned get a lot of scrutiny if they look, black, or if they have black people's hair, because people will say you need to look a certain way to be light skinned or light brown. And because she doesn't fit that idea in any way, she looks like a true black woman. And because of that, people think that she must be a bleacher. And this is what I've seen often personally myself, because many people think I look, I think I look ethnically African. I say Nigerian. And people always say just because my features look African, that I can't be as light as I naturally am. And it's like, you know, Africans come in all shades, you know, but ignorance, is the main reason why people think that people, can only be mixed or mixed looking to be light skinned. And this is a major reason why I say, like, people always claim dark skinned women get the most hate for being dark skinned, but dark skinned women will be the main ones attacking someone who's brown skinned because they are too light in their opinion. And then they'll go and attack them for being too dark when they tan. It's like with like brown skinned women, there's no way to win. And on top of it, dark skinned people, the dark skinned women and men, I'm talking about both, by the way, not just dark skinned women, they kind of have an alliance, especially dark skinned men, and I'd say dark skinned women. And, because they have an alliance with each other, they kind of like see each other similarly. They don't see brown skinned women similarly, really, it seems like. In my opinion, it's more so they hold them. Sometimes they might hold them if they think that they're naturally dark, like in the case of Serena Williams. When she's darker, they might try to accept her as a dark skinned woman. Even then, they might not, because many of the time they're still aware that she's brown skinned. Matter of fact, honestly, when she's tanned, sometimes, not as, I guess, tanned as Gabrielle Union, but there are people that are like her color that are men. And I've never heard of them being described as dark skinned. For example, like Mike Tyson, he's like exactly her color. He goes a bit lighter and then a bit darker or whatever. And nobody's ever described him as dark skinned from my experience. It's usually brown skinned. Some people would even argue lighter, um, like I guess light brown skinned or whatever. But to me, I just always notice that because how people like to they like to make women who aren't dark skinned darker than what they are. So, like, say someone is light skinned and they're female, they will try and say they're like brown skinned. If someone is brown skinned, and female, many of the time they're more likely to say they're dark skinned. Well, the men of their same complexion will often be associated with, brown skinned or light skinned, and they're the same exact complexion. The reason for that is because how celebrated and appreciated lighter skinned and lighter brown skinned women are to some people, that they don't want to give them, I guess, that prize and name, which honestly, if anyone was getting a benefit, which I don't believe light skin or light brown skin or whatever color benefits you in any way when you're black, but if it was, giving it a name would not change anything. Your experience is going to be your experience, whether someone calls you something or not. But it just goes to show you how some people can feel so insecure about those types of issues. And, I think this plays into it because people they get triggered with her because they basically clowned and attacked her for so long, and they think, how could she be this light? It makes them feel inferior to someone that they've been, trashing for so long, that they feel, insecure about that. And I mean that more about black men, especially dark skinned black men. So I did notice that in some comments against Serena Williams, there were a lot of, I guess you could say, pygmies who were trying to, find their validation or whatever by trashing her or whatever. But I just think, self-esteem wise, when people do that, they just have some personal issue, and maybe therapy can help them. Also, one other thing, notice how all the women I listed with her foundation, like a similar foundation color to her, like Ciara, Nicki Minaj, Rihanna, Beyonce, Stacey Dash, Carrie Hilson, even Tyra Banks, have all been accused of bleaching. And it's tiring, because it's like I said, most of the time you'll see people accuse brown skinned women of bleaching and sometimes light skinned women of bleaching if the light skinned woman can get dark enough. Usually, yellow complected light skinned people, they don't usually tan that dark so they can look like a browner complexion, but they won't be, specifically a dark brown, so to speak. But what's weird about this is, to me, brown skinned women are accused of bleaching, but, dark skinned people are the main bleachers who turned bleaching into a $1 billion business. Brown skinned people, we don't get teased for our skin tone by dark skinned people as much as dark skinned people go after each other. That's what usually pushes dark skinned people to do bleaching. So I never understood why people assume that brown skinned women bleach when it's mainly dark skinned people who do this. And on top of it, it's like I find that, excuse me, I find that I feel it's a place of jealousy, maybe, why these people talk about, people bleaching because they feel like that's the only way they could get to that complexion. Yet they want to blame brown skinned women for losing a tan. And it's like, I mean, if your community, if you dark skinned people are bleaching the most often, how can you come after anyone for bleaching when that problem is within you guys more than brown skinned women? I mean, if a brown skinned woman wanted to be lighter, all she has to do is stay out of the sun, her skin will get lighter. So usually people who don't want to get dark, who are brown skinned, just avoid the sun. Which honestly, I mean, like, that's their personal choice. Personally, for me, I like all my color differences, honestly, especially the darker shades. I like a rich brown because it's easier to my skin looks a lot smoother because if you have like a lot of imperfections on your skin, it's just easier when you're darker, basically. But I just find it like a lot of hypocrisy why a lot of dark skinned people like to blame people who are lighter for bleaching when it's like most people who bleach are darker. So what are you doing? I mean, in other races, yeah, sure, there's people who are like light skinned, basically, who are like Asian who bleach, but I'm talking about black people. Most of the time, what weirds me out the most is dark skinned bleachers can't even get, from what I've seen at least, they can't really get light brown most of the time, from what I've seen. Most of the time, they seem like they waver more on a medium brown complexion when they're dark. And I've seen this with I saw this on a channel because somebody was featuring bleachers with this whole situation, and it's like they, you know, one they don't really look that light to me. They look more brown skinned, but not like they don't look like a light brown complexion. I'm trying to say, um, kind of. They look like a grayish color, not like a caramel complexion. Like so, to me, I'm like, why would you think someone who was dark skinned could be all the way down to caramel like that? One, and then secondarily, like there's different things supposedly with bleaching because I saw this video and he was showing like all the different things bleachers. It looks really scary. Some of it like really creepy. And if you look at Serena Williams' face, her face is very smooth. Her skin's very smooth. It's very perfect and very flawless. You don't like see any stretch marks or ugly skin on her. Like, and you wouldn't, honestly, like if someone takes care of their skin, and, kind of like their, sometimes people like do different things to exfoliate and things of that nature. Their skin will look more smooth and stuff of that nature. So, I mean, like, I don't think bleaching would cause her to have such nice skin. It does the opposite. So I kind of find it weird people would associate, her skin tone with bleaching. Oh, there are some comments. I'm sorry. No, I don't. Endgame. And Exotical Unit United. People always accuse light skinned and mixed women of bleaching. Yeah, they do. Like I said, I've noticed much more light brown skinned women, especially of bleaching, because it's like a lot of the time people they're not comfortable with the fact that they can get darker skin, like dark brown, basically, and then they can get really light skinned, well, lighter skinned. People act like we can't get lighter by staying out of the sun. Exactly. And people are silent about Kelly Rowland's skin tone differences. But if a lighter woman looks half a shade lighter, she hates herself. Shake my head. So true. Yeah, honestly, I've noticed a lot of, darker skinned people, they get lighter. And I don't know, maybe that's just how they do it. I don't know. Like sometimes people are, I don't know how their skin works. So I try to not butt into what's going on there. But I mean, you see plenty of dark skinned people. They will get lighter and they'll have, a complexion that's a lot lighter. And nobody ever accuses them of bleaching, which is odd because, I mean, like, if we were going statistically, well, you would look to someone who was naturally very dark, not someone who we all have admittedly called brown skinned as bleaching because most brown skinned women don't bleach because like I said, if they wanted to be light, they could not light but light brown, they could, you know, lose their tan and it'd be totally able to be back to their natural color. So I just find it really weird that people always accuse people of this, but when we talk about bleaching, do we see brown skinned people? Do we see light skinned people as the face of this? No, we don't. We see the face of this being dark skinned black people. And I know a lot of people try and assume it's dark skinned black women, but if you look, it's actually dark skinned black men and black women. So I do not understand why people always associate this with black women because I mean, like, it applies to both of them. I don't like when dark skinned people attack brown skinned people for our change in complexion either, but expect others not to ridicule them when they tan. And I don't think anyone should ridicule them for when they tan. But what I'm saying is that I don't understand. If you can't accept other people's complexion and how it changes through the season and how it looks differently in certain lighting, personally for me, I've heard the same things as what people describe Serena Williams. Like they said, like she's ghastly, she looks like a ghost, she looks white, she's pale. You get the same thing if you take a picture outside. It's not fair that you can't take a photo outside, but other people who are dark skinned take photos outside all the time, and they look way lighter than what they do when they're dark skinned. And that's totally fine. Why is it totally fine for them to take a photo outside? They look significantly lighter than what they do inside, just like I look significantly lighter. There shouldn't be any hate for anyone's skin tone, you know? We should all appreciate our skin tones because to me, all shades are beautiful. So we shouldn't be shaming anyone for looking lighter in the sun, you know? Same dark skinned people deal with most colorism, but color, like skin color hate, I feel comes more against brown skinned women like Serena, who, get attacked when they're tan and attacked even more when they are naturally light brown. So it's kind of like, you can't win because either way, you're going to get hate. And it's like, one way you get like this kind of hate, like you hate yourself, you're not supposed to look like that. Something's wrong with how you look, basically. And then the other way is like, oh, you're too dark now. And now we're gonna attack you for being dark skinned. Like either way, it's a lot of attacking. And dark skinned people claim that, they get a lot of colorism from for being dark skinned. Yet you're gonna attack other people, and it's mainly dark skinned people who will attack other people who are brown skinned for their darker tan. They do that often. And then they will attack people for being lighter. Yet sometimes somehow there's a privilege with being lighter. There's a privilege with being lighter than dark skinned people. No, I don't believe in that. It kind of like proves right that there is it proves against that basically. Serena Williams looks a lot like her brown-skinned mother, and is even built like her. It's no shock that she returns from tennis and retires. She will return to being brown-skinned. You know, because I think a lot of people ignore that she has had a career of being more tanned. And as she retires, she's gonna look lighter. And then on top of it, like people, I think they get confused with Venus because Venus is darker skinned, but Venus looks like her father and therefore is darker skinned. But she looks like her mother. And if you look at her mother, she's a caramel complexion. So it's not really a shock that she is returning back to her caramel complexion. Caramel a caramel complexion isn't that light skinned, in my opinion. It's not like very light skinned or yellow. So it's not really a shock that someone can easily get to dark skin at that complexion. We're still brown. We're not like, we don't have a lack of melanin where we're yellow. So, I mean, the ability to tan is just very readily available. And like I've said, I feel like, people who don't have this complexion don't know how it works. So should just shut up about it. Honestly. There's nothing wrong with her. It's not self hate to lose a tan. And there's nothing wrong with how she looks, you know? Some people are are different complexions and, they are all beautiful in their own way. So you don't have to try and attack people based on their skin tone and act like, something's wrong with someone just because their skin tone is lighter than another person's complexion. Because it's not unnatural to, be brown skinned and all that is included with being brown skinned. What is really self hate is the thinking of dark skinned people who think to get to that complexion, automatically they think of bleaching. That's because what they want, and that's what they think they need to do to get to that complexion. It might be even a compliment to some extent because it's basically saying, what do I need to do? And what I think of to be your complexion is to bleach. Kind of covertly saying, I want to be your complexion, which is, sad for a dark skinned person because, you shouldn't want to be anyone else's color. You shouldn't want to wish you were other people's color. And the more jealousy someone has, the more they will hate on that person, the harder they will attack that person. And that's exactly what happens with Serena Williams. That's why people come hard against her with her having a lighter complexion, because they hate that she is, lighter. It makes them feel a little jealous, one. And then, honestly, like I said before, it also makes them feel that bad about themselves by attacking her because now they feel inferior to someone that they have clowned so deeply. They don't think of how brown skin changes all due to lighting, and then they expect others not to say anything about them being dark, but will go after how light someone looks in direct sun exposure. And I mean, they seem to me like, you know, they don't want to, they want to never be questioned for their complexion. They never want any negativity. It's almost like, they claim that light skinned people have always been seen as the ideal in their heads or whatever. And then they seem to want to switch things and make it where dark skin is ideal. Honestly, from my point of view, I always feel like dark skinned people have always been the ideal and they've always just controlled things more. And therefore, they've always just wanted to retain more power. I feel like most of the time, in this day and age, some people who complain about colorism are the same people who are just basically feeling more threatened by the populations of lighter skinned people, especially nowadays as lighter skinned people become a higher percentage of the black population. When that happens, it makes them feel a certain way about the dynamic they have in the black community. That's why I feel like dark skinned people, they don't have disadvantage. I don't feel they struggle from colorism. This is more so, to me, a power struggle situation where they try to basically say that because generally they're seen as the standard of blackness, but if people show other standards of blackness, that basically threatens their own blackness because they feel like they will be erased. which isn't true, honestly. I mean, like, dark-skinned black people will always be around. And the majority of black people aren't even dark-skinned. And that's why I feel like brown-skinned women get attacked the most because of the dynamic of dark-skinned people in the black community. Because brown-skinned women and brown-skinned men are the majority. So, because they are the majority, they are seen as a bit of a threat in the sense of, never like they want to be seen as the image of blackness being dark skinned. But anyone could readily say that in reality, brown skinned people are the image of blackness. So that's why I feel like, in general, this is why, you know, when people see people who are like Serena Williams' complexion, it basically threatens their existence because they feel like. I remember actually there was a video on Chrissy's channel about this because she would always say that light skinned or I guess brown skinned women, these women were like about Serena Williams' color, um, that were promoted were looking dark skinned because they just had a tan basically. And she was basically saying that they were just like imposters or like they were basically in a weird sense blackfishing. Really weird. Anyway. Um and to me it's just like some people get a little bit upset, when they see something like this because they feel like they were infiltrated to some extent. And it's like, I guess, honestly, if you think of it, it could bother some people because, if you are able to look, very attractive and very beautiful as a dark skinned woman, even if you naturally have brown skin, is going to make some dark skinned people feel a certain way about that negatively. And, I feel like, when people are not naturally dark skinned, it sometimes basically makes a situation where darker skinned women like Chrissy will feel more like, I guess that's the only thing or the thing that they feel they have over other people. So if you have that as well, then what is the difference? You know what I mean? But I think that's why when you distinguish skin tones from each other, especially with experience and with looks, it's impossible to do, especially for brown skinned women. That's why many of us are more so of the matter in a mentality where, all shades matter because you kind of like experience life where you're not really treated any differently if you're lighter or darker. And, you kind of learn that you can't really, define yourself away from either side, really, because if you do, you're basically that's a part of you, When you are tanned, you're still that complexion, and when you're lighter, you're still that complexion too. It kind of like, I think, in its own way, erases the division between dark and light. And a lot of people who like to make that division get very uncomfortable and upset because it erodes the distinction, basically. So that's all I really have to say here. Thanks for listening, and I'm game. You should start an online OnlyFans account. No, sorry, I don't do that. But thanks for the suggestion. All right, well, that's all I have to say today. Thanks for listening. I might make some other videos actually. This was actually not supposed to be a video I was supposed to make. I was supposed to make a video on something else, but yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.